Hmm. Well, hello, everyone. The time is now 5:30 p.m. I'm calling to order the South End Landmark District Commission, September 2, 2025 public hearing. Commissioners present are myself, Catherine Hunt, Peter Sanborn, Felicia Jacques, and Christopher DeBoard. Today, the Commission will be holding a public hearing to review applications in accordance with the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, extending the suspension of these provisions until June 30th, 2027. We are conducting this meeting online. To ensure public access to the deliberations of the South End Landmark District Commission, the public may access this call through telephone and video conferencing. This hearing is being recorded. All further conversations between commissioners should be audible to the public in attendance until the hearing has adjourned. Are there any media or elected officials currently present? Oh, is Sarah here?
Sarah is not here. We will
Oh,
be.
okay. Okay. Anyone see anyone? No. Okay. If so, raise your hand. I guess no one raised their hand. Members of the public will have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on applications and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand in the application via the Zoom meeting platform. We will repeat these instructions throughout the hearing. And just as a reminder, public comment is taken after we have a motion that's been presented and seconded. Then we take public comment and then we vote. Okay? Excellent. Our agenda tonight is design review, then administrative review, ratification of the August meeting minutes, staff updates, and adjournment. So our first application for design review is 14 Rutland Street, and the proposed work is to install a new entryway door system. Do we have an applicant, and could you identify yourself for the record? Nate Roy, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I have myself on the call. Ivan, who also has his hand up, is the architect that we've been working with. We should also have my wife, Teresa, somewhere on this call as well from a separate location. And then our contractor, David McGrath with Kulak Construction, who has also raised his hand.
Okay, are you presenting, Nate?
Yeah, I was planning to kick it off and then
Sure.
any like very specific questions I was probably going to throw to Ivan or David.
Great, go ahead.
Cool, great, thank you. I'm Nate Roy. I'm the owner of the home under review today. I just kind of want to start the session by giving a bit of more context kind of around this proposal. So we're asking the commission to approve this project to provide us with some relief to some continued safety issues that we've experienced. My wife, Teresa, as I mentioned before on the call, and I have lived in the South End for over a decade now. And we understand the neighborhood and its many amazing aspects, but also some of the difficulties. But in our kind of 10 plus years here, we've seen the safety situation degrade, especially when we moved within the South End to our current home. And we love the neighborhood, we love living here, but the continued dangerous situations have kind of made us feel pretty unsafe with our current entryway system. As a side note, I have images, videos, and etc. of some of the situations. I decided not to include them in here. I don't want to out people publicly or anything like that. It's not the purpose of this. But if there is a need to see any of that, I'm happy to share it privately. So we have discussed this kind of like degrading safety situation with our neighbors along Compson Street, which is like the direct neighbors kind of along here. And many of whom have lived in the South End for decades. And we have their complete support on this, and they're actually kind of interested in taking similar measures to protect themselves and their families as well. And so the last kind of like little bit to say about this here is like, we believe the proposed door system will significantly increase our safety and security by completely removing the fact that our doorway, as you can see kind of in this image, is very recessed and providing a very obscured from view nook that our current doorway provides. I've also included some information in the documentation of houses in our very immediate vicinity, like within like a 1 or 2 block walk, that have very similar door systems to what we're asking for. So I guess like in closing for the context, is like, just want to thank you for taking the time to consider the proposal to provide some relief to our safety issues that we've experienced, but also, we're not looking to compromise on the expected looks of, the homes in our beautiful historic neighborhood that we've lived in for a decade and love to live in. We're just looking to find something that works with the historic commission, as well as provides us the kind of like safety issues. That was kind of the pieces that I wanted to say about this. And then the actual door system, I can explain a little bit more in depth what we're looking for, or I can, Ivan, if you want to raise your hand and explain anything there, that's also fine.
And just to provide some information for the applicants, I'm the one who right now is controlling the presentation. So anytime you'd like me to go to the next slide, just feel free to say next.
Okay. So the proposed door system in this, just like very briefly, in this image, we'd expect it to be coming down to the edge of the brick here. So we're looking to completely close off the covered and hidden doorway. I do not, I'm sorry, I'm a little out of sorts as far as what would be next on this, but if we can click through to the next image, I will continue to talk about it. I don't think there's much to say about this one, sorry. This is just a little bit more of the depth of the doors, and you were looking to match a similar look here. Yeah, this is the proposed architectural drawing. Sorry, please go ahead. If
No, I'm sorry, Nate. I was going to say, if you like, I can
yes,
explain the door setup and how that would be. Good evening, afternoon. My name is Ivan Hernandez, the designer of the project. And as Nate was saying, the objective here is to actually construct doors on the second step up. So if you go back to that front photo there, you'll have a set of doors very similar to those that are there that would be installed on the bottom step, second to bottom step. Actually, if you go back one more to kind of like the first right there. As Nate said, in line with the brick, you would step up to the first step to open the door, and then the door would be in a second step. The doors or door would swing out, the active panel would swing out over the step, obviously, and then you would continue up the steps to the platform that's currently there. The new door setup is very similar to the current door setup, just a slightly different preference with the door style. What would happen there is that that would be what would happen would be a 4-panel door with a smaller section of glass and then a transom up above. And you can see that door a little further down in the presentation. Right now, there's black hardware on the door that would be the same, similar style to what would be installed on the new door. Actually, if you scroll down on the photos in the presentation, we should come to that right there. That there is a similar or setup of what we're proposing to do with the transom above the doors and then the 2 doors. That actually represents the setup, but it doesn't actually represent the actual, well, the ideal door style that Nate and his wife would like. If you scroll down a little bit more, there is a little bit more right there. One back. That is basically the preferred door style that Nate and his wife would like to install. Give them a little bit more privacy, less chances of somebody breaking the glass and trying to get into the enclosed area. The door would be all wood, fir or mahogany, and as I said, painted with black hardware. Very likely, I think we had said a black paint, if I'm not mistaken, Nate.
Black or matching the
Right.
current one, whichever is preferred.
Right, correct. So that's basically what what the project consists of, is building these two doors over that second step. And then if you go further down, you'll come to a similar samples in the neighborhood where there are similar setups. Actually, that's the door there, the hardware, excuse me. If you continue further down, you'll see that's there it is. That's actually a perfect example right on Rutland of a similar door that's at 27 Rutland, where they have that swing out second step placement with the side lights. And then if you continue to scroll down, you'll see more samples of double doors, transom above, and they're set either on the first or second step. Those are similar doors swinging out to the sidewalk, but they're more commercial style, multi-unit building. So again, this precedence has been set and already in the neighborhood as far as Nate said, trying to prevent folks from coming up and sitting on the steps or et cetera, et cetera. I'll let you add whatever you want, Nate, to the
Yeah. I think that generally covers it, like for what the collection of these doors and things like that are just trying to show some of the precedent around the neighborhood of what we're looking to do, or even like, I guess, like more intrusive than what we're looking to do. So we're hoping just to kind of like show just in the immediate vicinity kind of, the precedent that is available for this. So I don't think there's too much more to add there. I don't want to go into any specifics of the safety stuff unless you want to talk about it.
No, I don't think so. So if that concludes your presentation, thank you, gentlemen. Commissioners, who would like to start? Let's start with Peter Sanborn. Comments and questions? Peter?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions. My comments are, as a South End resident, I can certainly sympathize and empathize with the security and safety issues that the South End in particularly the areas as we get closer to Mass Cast have been experienced for some time. It's really a difficult situation in terms of quality of life, but notwithstanding that, I do not see how our standards and criteria can allow this modification. They really speak to retention of the original details for entryway. So unless my fellow commissioners or public comments can support, can persuade me otherwise, regrettably, I can't support this application.
Thanks, Peter. I could jump in, but I will go to Chris next.
Great. I have a question. When was this building constructed?
Year 2000.
Year 2000. And did this was this doorway for this building type, was that okayed through the landmarks, the SELDC?
You mean the existing door or what
The
they're
existing door, because
proposing?
the building is not new, and so it was built with that, entryway. in
Correct.
2000.
Correct. And I will
pardon?
say, Chris, if you go around on Compton Street to see the
Mhm.
rest of the building,
Yeah.
all the doorways are like that, with the exception of number 8. And we
Yes.
have to ask if that went through the Landmarks Commission and was approved, because it is not original with the
Well,
building.
those are all new buildings. Compton Street, I believe.
It's all part of that same complex.
Yeah, but it's all, yeah, they're not, there's not an original brick in them. That was just,
Well, I mean, original when that building went up in 2000.
yeah, yeah, sure. So my question, I was just curious if that was, designed and okayed through the South End Landmarks. Because that was my question, and I just wanted to verify that that building was new. I think there is, because it's not a historical vestibule, I think there could be some room to put in something similar to the picture that's up on our screen right now. It's the 467 Shummet. Something that could close in that entryway, because it is not original, and it was designed in 2000, trying to follow some of the things, but I think maybe even double doors might make it even more historical, following some of these precedents. Now, I wasn't really happy with the whole design, but those are my thoughts at the moment.
Thanks, Chris. Felicia?
Yeah, I mean, I think the notion of the Compton Street townhouses and that development can give a bit of an opening that it is, although in a historic district and an overlay district, they are not historic structures. And I'm sure that the language was taken in the new construction to try to, have a nod towards the historic district. And I'll sort of say full disclosure, I have a building on Concord and Washington, and we are experiencing the same thing. And it is, it has gotten more treacherous at times than I think it's ever been. So we don't have children there, so I can appreciate that. I guess my question was, I like the fact that you were able to find examples of what you intend to do in the area, but I just wonder, did you ever, is there a drawing or a rendering that sort of has this kind of door superimposed on your existing elevation to get a sense of how that door sits? Because first it was said to the brick. Now I think you're up one step from the brick. I'm just not quite sure how it's sitting and how the existing railings are going to interact with this new door.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of didn't speak super clearly when I said the brick. When I mean that, I meant where the brick of the home ended, which was on the second step.
I see. Okay, so the elevation, the elevation of the brick. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have
not the brick sidewalk coming down. Okay.
Exactly. Sorry, I don't have all the technical terms.
And I was like, well, I don't know that I can do that, but I just wondered if there's
some sort of a reveal.
Yes.
Or in the brick, so that it's not in the same plane.
So do you have an elevation sort of showing that, or even if it's sort of like a photograph where the door is now superimposed in the walkway to see or sort of see what's happening?
The architectural plans show the elevation, the proposed elevation, which I think
the line drawing, you mean?
The line, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You're looking for something in real time, real color.
Yeah. Yeah, we would have to put that together.
Mm-hmm.
And as Nate said, it was set on that second step and right beyond the brick, so it wouldn't be flush with the brick, it would be set back from the brick.
And what about the second set of railings?
Yeah, those will be adjusted back so that they will still remain inside the vestibule.
Could we go back to that picture?
Yeah, could we go back to that, because
the bricks, please?
There are some there's two sets,
Um,
Yeah, are you talking about the ones that are like next to the like the?
If you go back a few more, maybe Jacqueline, maybe 3 more? One
Well,
more,
I think it's the first image.
one more. Yes.
so,
So the ornamental railing. What happens with that when you
The
hear it? It's gonna stay?
yeah, the front rails on either side would remain untouched, and the door system would sit right where the
Mhm, where the
secondary
brick meets,
rails,
yeah.
where the brick meet, just to the inside of that, so
Mhm.
the brick would return into the new door system.
do the current doors, do they swing out or in?
Sorry, they
I'm sorry,
swing in.
The current doors that are there, do they swing out or in?
I think he said in.
Yeah.
in.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I mean, if we move forward with a second set of doors here, is there, how much space is between the top step and the brick? I'm just thinking about sometimes how awkward it is. You open a door out,
Yeah.
then you walk down steps. I think that it could be even dangerous if you're not expecting. You have to have a 3-foot trajectory past an open door. So if you open it up into steps, I don't even think that meets code. You have to have a 36-inch flat space. So, and then opening out over steps, I think could pose some issues. And so I'm just thinking, as you said that, what if you were to put it on the top step? I don't know what the space is from the
Yeah.
top step to the
That's
front of
kind
the
where I
brick.
thought that's kind of where I thought you were going with this.
But
The
yes,
tops.
thank you.
Yeah.
I land the plane. Because that gives you, I think that a much more from a aesthetic perspective, you've got doors that swing in just like the other ones, because otherwise you're opening out and then you're pushing in, and it's just not, your body doesn't work that way. So I think if we put 2 doors up maybe on the top step, they're further in, and yes, somebody can still sit on those 2 steps, but you're a hell of a lot closer to being guarded like all double doors are in the south end.
Yeah, it's not
Okay,
really a vestibule at that point. Yeah.
I'd like to give my comments next before we go too far down that road.
Mhm.
This photograph is a bit misleading. I went by the building on Sunday, and my photograph is very different. I mean, it depends on the time of day. I understand you're trying to show something that looks dangerous, but at different times of the day, it's very open and very bright in there, which leads me to the safety concern, which is really not our purview, unfortunately. And I'm a person who has lived in the South End for 25 years, 18 of them on the corner of Mass Ave and Harrison. So I have incredible empathy, as Peter mentioned, we all do, for these kinds of issues. But unfortunately, our commission is not here to solve safety issues. We are here to address applications as they relate and respect the design guidelines. And another thing I'd like to say is showing examples throughout the South End, for example, as far away as Shawmut Ave, are not that helpful or not that relevant, because there are so many different contexts within the South End, and there are certain design guidelines that apply throughout. And this building, when it was constructed, yes, it wasn't built in the 1800s or 1950, but it was constructed in accordance with the design guidelines to achieve a South End building. And when we look at the context of Rutland Street and around the corner, this complex was designed in a unified fashion. All of the entries were designed in the same fashion, and only number 8 has changed the entryway. And I believe Rachel can confirm that that did not go through the Landmarks Commission and was not approved. So I think we have to limit our concern here and our review to this exact location and whether or not it follows the guidelines.
When I said safety, I'm not all that concerned about who sleeps in the doorway. That is what happens when you live in the South End. I was saying the safety of doors that open out over steps. That's the safety I was talking about, because that's not code.
I understand, Chris. I just didn't want to get too far down the road of designing something if judged to be, not
But you said, you know, some examples on Shawmut, which is right around the corner. There are these doors about a block away from them on Shawmut.
But this is a very, very precise context right here. This whole complex that was built. And it, you know, the security and
That-
safety concerns are for other agencies to address, not the Landmarks Commission. Peter?
Yeah, I was going to say that the example around the corner on Shawmut is also a very different style building. It's a much later building. And even that is recessed. I think this, I was in the neighborhood when this development was proposed and permitted, and clearly I think Cumston and the end buildings on East Concord, West Concord and Rutland evoked the buildings that it backs up to, the Greek Revival buildings with recessed entryways that are on Shawmut in particular. I guess I'd like to tap the wisdom and knowledge of our staff and say, and ask, do the guideline standards and criteria distinguish between new modifications proposed for new construction versus the Victorian era buildings? So either of the staff present, I appreciate what your understanding is of the intent of the standards and criteria.
Sure, Peter. Generally, standards and criteria are applicable to new construction. Even if it's a new building, we still review it within the district. Whether or not is a special interpretation or something for new construction isn't really clear. Generally, we apply the same standards and criteria to all buildings in the district. So once you're built, you are protected in the same fashion, which looks to the standards and criteria that talk about entryways and preserving their designs.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel.
Catherine, if it's not premature, I'd like to offer a motion.
Thank you, Peter. I was just going to ask if anyone would like to do that. Thank you. Please do.
I move to deny the application without prejudice, which for the applicant means you can come back with, if you have more information that is material to modifying a decision, you can come back subsequently with the application requesting this action.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Felicia. We have a motion. It's been seconded. And we will now take public comment. I will read a little introduction to that. Sorry, Rachel.
Sorry, Catherine, I'll go after you.
Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. I do see hands. Jackie,
Catherine, this is Rachel. I just wanted to let the commissioners know, as we shared with you earlier today, we received 6 letters of support from the community for this project.
Right, and thank you for sending those off earlier.
Megan, I have asked to unmute whenever you can, if you can unmute.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, my video can't turn on apparently, but my name is Megan Alves and I live at 5 Haven Street. I'm sitting at my kitchen that directly looks at this lovely 14, the steps of 14 Rutland. I've lived here with my husband and my family for about 6 years, almost 7 now. And I wanted to publicly voice my support for this project for a few reasons. I did hear the commissioner's perspectives on the safety of the neighborhood and how there are many different forums in which we address public safety. But I will say, if we look back at the call logs, I can promise you that my phone number and my husband's is one of the top ones that call 911 for this address. We have seen not only people sleeping in this vestibule, but we also have been part of an organized effort with the police to combat crime because people were using these green areas around as places to stash drugs, come back, and it's not just about this house, but it's about the whole neighborhood. And this has become an area of congregation, not just on an occasion and not just in this past summer, which has been especially bad, but for the past 6 years we've been here. So that issue, I understand that there are many different avenues to address those problems, but I just needed to make sure that that is super clear that this is not just a today issue or a this summer issue, but this has been happening for a while. My next point that I wanted to talk about is about the two points, I guess. One is about the fact that it was built in the 2000s. And if you look and walk down Rutland Street, there's actually, although it is part of the Cumpston HOA and part of 1597 Washington Street, it's actually the only door on Rutland that's part of this HOA. And so because of that, it's actually not perceived to be part of that street as much as in a row on Cumpston, 2, 4, 6, 8, all being identical with different shades of blues and greens in their vestibules is a little different than this doorway. They also all have different types of flower arrangements. They have different window boxes. It's not a cookie cutter because of the positioning of their house and the greenery around the side. So I wanted to echo the kind of support in that it done well, it could still be historically accurate and a nod to this neighborhood. It does not need to be a cookie cutter to the rest of the Cumpston Street neighbors. And then lastly, on the point of the doors, opening in and out and over steps. I'm sure you all are familiar with my house, and we have a vestibule door that opens externally over a few steps and then also internally into our house. And so I think if we look closer, I mean, I could throw a baseball and break the window over here. We are quite close, and we do have very similar structure to our door, our neighbors' doors that were just actually 3 Haven Street was just passed by the commission probably about 8 years ago for that renovation. So there is a precedent here. I want to just give my strong support to Nate and his wife and for our beautiful neighborhood that we want to continue to keep beautiful. I appreciate this commission and all the things you do, but I just felt important to, as a person that stares at this morning, noon, and night from my kitchen table, just truly advocate to say I think this is a great project and would love to support it.
Thank you, Megan. Do we see other public members wishing to contribute? I do not. Okay. Jackie or Rachel, do you see anyone else?
I do not see
Okay.
any more hands raised or any more emails or any email.
So, thank you. We have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll now take a vote. Peter Sanborn? Felicia?
Aye.
Peter? Chris?
Nay.
Peter?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you. So Nate and Ivan, you can get in touch with Rachel as you wish in the future then to follow up. Okay, thank you very much.
well.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Good night. Our next application is 36 Milford Street. The proposed work is restoring an existing entry door, also repairing that door, and to install it at an exterior wall of the building to create an enclosed vestibule at the entrance of the building. Do we have the applicant?
We do, Paul. I'm about to make you the co-host so you can present. I will be sharing my screen, so anytime you want me to go to the next slide, just say next.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Do you mind adding Jazz Bogle as a co-host, the
Absolutely.
owner of the
Yeah,
project?
just both give your full names, please. Thanks, Paul.
Okay. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Pawel, development manager for the 36 Milford Street project. Tonight we are here to present an amendment to call it amendment, but revision to a proposal that was already approved and reviewed by this board in December of 2023. Jackie, do you mind going forward? Actually, let's start on the second slide. I think would be helpful. So this slide depicts two elevations. One, the front elevation, which is an existing elevation, and front elevation, which indicates proposed. On this elevation, I've indicated all the elements which have been already previously approved. So I really want to focus the attention tonight around the front entrance to the building. This project is a project that we're already actively under construction, hoping to deliver this fall, which is a full gut rehab and restoration of the building. So currently, as it stands today, the existing entrance of the building, there's a bit of a vestibule condition there, where the front door is set in behind the entrance to the building, or the front facade of the building. Yet the front facade kind of contains this transom condition and a framed opening on the stairs. If we go back one slide, this kind of shows a condition which is very, very prevalent on the building. So on the street, actually, I should say. The Milford Street, if you go up and down the street, many of the conditions are actually as shown on the left of this slide here, 34 Milford Street. So what we're proposing to do is move our opening or doors from our current location to basically the exterior of the building. We've kind of gone through historical photos, and as evidence as on the jams of the currently installed on the building, it appears that there may have been doors already, as shown at 34 Milford, on 36 Milford as well. This facade has been modified over time. So if we could go back to the slide that we were on previously, and actually maybe go on to the third slide. Yeah, this shows exactly what I was saying. These photos were taken, recently on site, showing the existing frame. So it looks like there may have been doors already at this location. So we're not sure exactly what was, historical or not. But as I mentioned, I don't have an exact count, but over half the doors on Milford Street have the exterior doors located at the exterior wall of the building. So let's go back to the middle slide for a second. Back one slide. Yeah, so basically all we're proposing to do is basically move that door. We're going to be using the existing doors, and we'll be fully restoring them and basically installing some new hardware on them, which was all previously approved in terms of the hardware set, and basically setting it flush, setting it essentially into that same location, which was shown on the previous slides here. And the reason we're doing this is, with the restoration here, we were keeping the existing stairs, and there's a pinch point on the inside of that building where there's not enough clearance to create a code compliant vestibule in between that stair and the basically unit entrance doors. So we need this extra clearance in order to create a code compliant vestibule on the interior. Our entrance itself isn't code compliant. I know this was a topic on the previous agenda item, but given the historic nature of this building, you know, there really isn't a good solution to create a code compliant solution. So we want to make sure we at least provide that code compliant with on the inside of the building when you enter the vestibule. So I'll leave it there and turn it over to any questions or comments.
Okay, did you lose your other presenter, Jazz? Was he going to present, Paul?
No, just me, but he's here in case there's any questions or comments.
Oh,
as well.
there he is again. Okay, okay, very good. Let's go to commissioners' comments and questions. Felicia?
No comments and questions. I appreciate the presentation was very clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
No questions or comments. Oh, I do have one comment. The light was already approved, the coach style lamp, the colonial candle hanging lamp.
Yes, that was previously approved. I should say
Lights
don't-
are actually exempt from our review.
Okay, yeah, you're right. I was thinking of the ones that are on the outside. Never mind.
I apologize. I should have noted that
No
as
worries, no
previously
worries at all.
presented then.
Peter?
I have one question and one comment. Just to be clear, before you started the project, there were not outer doors on there, right? That was just
That's
the
correct.
ghost
The photo on the left represents the condition of the project prior to starting construction.
Okay. And my comment is, I don't know whether it was Milford Street or one of the adjacent streets. Several years ago, we had a similar request to install outer doors, and the commission denied that request. I can't remember the address. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago. So to further elaborate on that, I think we have to look at the standards and criteria that we were referencing for the prior applicant for this application as well. So I'm not inclined to support this application. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Peter. My question is about 34 Milford Street and whether or not that is an original entry. I doubt it. And if it did come before the commission, if that were approved, it's kind of a similar situation here to what we just discussed, as Peter has said.
Staff has no evidence that 34 Milford Street came in front of the commission for approval. It does look like it was modified at some point, like 36. However, we do have photographs showing Milford Street at an earlier time, and it's pretty clear that this is a modification, the addition of the transom and the door at the front of the stoop.
Right. And Pawel, am I pronouncing your name correctly? Pawel?
Yep, that's correct. That's Pawel.
Is that actually a current photo? I don't think so, right? There's some kind of construction has started, or?
Yes. So we have a full building permit and are underway.
Right.
So this is a photo taken probably in the fall of 2023.
So the photo I took shows the doors not there. Have they been removed? And there's
We removed them and are protecting them in storage offsite because the intent is to reinstall the same doors, restore and reinstall.
Good. Okay.
And just a note about 30, am I allowed to add a note about the previous comment, the 34 Milford?
Sure. Yeah.
So I know I specifically referenced 34 Milford, but if you go up and down Milford Street, I mean, there's over half the addresses on these street have a condition exactly like what we're proposing. So it's not limited to just 34 Milford.
Right. And I'm sure the others weren't approved either, probably. Yeah, it's just tough. I mean, the guidelines and the historic information, they are what they are. Jazz, did you want to say something or shall we
Yeah,
go?
yes,
Yeah.
please. Thank you. Hope everyone's well. I just have my comments are the transom, which is placed right now in the front, and the door jamb, which is existing, which we haven't taken down,
Mhm.
shows there are hinges that this door existed where the transom is at one point. We also looked at a historic photo of this building, which was probably from 70s, I would say. The building had a commercial street front. So the building has been modified, then remodified back to what condition it's in right now.
Uh-huh.
So it's gone through two changes, at least two that I can think of, maybe more. And we're just going by what's present there. And, we couldn't find any older photo than what we saw of 70s. There is, as staff mentioned, photos of Milford Street. They don't necessarily show this property. And given the transom that exists at its location and the door frame where the door previously existed is solely the premises were here to place the door back to its original location. Otherwise, a transom sitting in a window doorway is sort of an awkward condition in brownstones.
Well, there is documentation, earlier photos from 1941 and also, is it 1972, Rachel, of 34 Milford, which shows a recessed entry. So while certainly buildings go through many changes across the years, the ultimate goal here with the commission and the design guidelines is to return these buildings to their original historic intent and design. So it is, yes, you can see changes, commercial spaces and so on, and then they revert back to residential. But the objective is to get these buildings as historically accurate as possible. And that's where we are in this historic district. So any further?
Catherine,
Yeah,
I'd like to make a further comment.
please.
In fact, I would not be adverse if you wanted to remove that existing frame and transom to restore the whole entryway to what was pretty clearly original.
That would be the ultimate goal, indeed.
Does the side paneling still exist behind the plywood that's up there now?
There is side paneling that does exist behind the plywood. We've covered it up just to protect it during construction.
Good. Well, indeed, rather than just use something that's been cobbed on at some date inappropriately and go with that, the idea is to, go back to what it should be. So.
No, absolutely. And we want to preserve as much as possible. So that's why we removed the door off the site so they don't get damaged. Covered the paneling on the side by plywood. And this just seemed like an obvious condition to us where the doors existed in that space and giving neighbors and street condition. Hence, we are here to see if that would be acceptable to the
question: Are they matching doors? Do the doors you removed, are they the same as the existing ones that are?
Yes, the doors that are there, we've saved those doors.
No, I understand, but are they all four panels the same?
I believe there's only two panels on that. So
you got two installed here, and you said you removed two.
No, we removed those two. that are shown in the photo.
Okay, so there was only one set of doors.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
One set of doors and the two panels, yeah. And it's great that you took that care to, carefully store the doors and panels. That's great. So I think we're ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion if no one else wants to. I move that we deny the application without prejudice. And further would encourage the removal of the non-original transom and framing that's at the face of the building. That is encouraging to the applicant, not a requirement.
Great. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thanks, Felicia. So we have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll now take public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Do we see any hands up or have?
At the current moment,
Not seeing any raised hands, and we do not have any written public comment.
Great, then. Between my coughing, I think we're ready for a vote. Peter?
Aye.
Felicia?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
And I vote aye with the motion. Thank you. Thank you very much, guys, for coming in. Pawel and Jazz, thank you very much.
Thank you, commissioners. Just quick question about the transom. If we want to remove that, would that be a reapplication for that matter?
I don't think so, Rachel.
Yeah, yes,
Really?
because it wasn't
Oh.
part of the original application.
Okay.
We can't force them to remove it, but if they want to, they can tell us, and it would likely be an admin.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Terrific.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
You too. Thanks, guys. Our next application is 21 Wellington Street. The proposed work is to install a new cast iron fence at the front garden. And before we start, I just want to remind that this application has several items under administrative review, and those items do not have to be mentioned here, so we can limit the discussion just to the fence, if you would, please. So, do we have an applicant? Mr. Freed?
Yes, hi. Good evening,
Hi.
commissioners. Yes, I'll be presenting the project tonight. My name is David Freed. I'm an architect at Chu & Company.
Thank you.
We are seeking to add a small garden fence around the perimeter of the front garden to 21 Wellington Street. If you could go to the first page of the presentation, please. So this building is one of a series of 5 on Wellington. It's on the right side of Wellington as you're coming down from Columbus. It's very close to the South End corridor. Next image, please. So we're looking to install a new garden fence and reset the existing curbstones. Next slide, please. Just a quick bird's eye view of the proposed project, which is where this little red balloon is. Next slide, please. Again, looking from the back. Next slide, please. Here's a street view. This street has a beautiful canopy of trees. So our buildings is right at the very end here, abutting a larger multifamily building. And it appears that there never was a fence. If you could go to the next slide, please. I'm sorry, one more. Here's an existing elevation. I think we have a better picture if you go to the next slide. All right, so here's sort of a composite of the 5 together. Our site's the very one at the end here. Numbers 13 and 15 have matching fences, cast iron fences. There isn't one at number 17. Number 9 has this this fence here, which is sort of kind of like a chain link fence, but not quite. It's much earlier than chain link. Next slide, please. Close-up image of the front. Next slide. So these are more closer up images of 13 and 15. We, in our design, we're reusing or using these same piers and the same top rail in our design as in both of these fences. Next slide, please. In number 17 and 19. So 17 doesn't have a fence, 19 does have this. Jacqueline asked me to look into finding this fence pattern, and I searched through many different catalogs. I reached out to Ramos Ironworks for a quote to see if they could make this. And it's been 2 weeks. I've tried multiple times contacting them and haven't received a response.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have any luck finding this. So I think we'd like to stick with the design that we submitted. Next slide, please. So the image on the left is just a plan of the fence. We're looking at just 3 sections that are 9 feet and change, 13 feet and change, and 6 feet and change. We've elevated the 3 sections to the right, and here's in the middle of the sheet is sort of an enlarged detail of the plan of the fence. And we're using that same pier that exists in number 13 and 15. And then we're recreating kind of a similar design of the X's, but a little different than those, kind of using chunkier pieces. And then we're using the same top rail as number 15 and 13. And then on the last page, I think we have the parts called out. Next page, please. Thank you. So these would be the components that would be used to assemble that fence. And with that, I'll just open it up for comments or questions.
Before the commission moves forward, I decided to add a little bit more historical context within the presentation for the commission to fully understand. So staff consulted with the South End Historical Society, and what the South End Historical Society found, specifically within this image in 1941, was that 19 Wellington and 21 Wellington shared a similar, if not exact, chain link fence that's seen here. So the one that's currently circled in red is 21 Wellington Street that we see there. South End Historical Society also provided an image of an 1857 catalog of a wire hurdle fence that was a popular material and similar design as to the one that was used on both 21 and 19 Wellington Street. I couldn't exactly locate when the fence for 21 Wellington Street was removed, and I couldn't exactly locate when both fences were installed within the property. But I thought that this historical context would help the commission in moving forward with their decision.
Thank you, Jackie.
Right, that's very good.
I have a quick question. David, I know you had dimensions on your plan, but I couldn't see it. How high is the fence proposed to be?
Oh, if we go back a couple of slides, I don't remember the exact dimension. I think it's like 25 inches. It's one more. Yeah, if we could zoom in a little bit on the right there.
Unfortunately, I am a little bit unable to zoom in.
I believe it's like 2 feet 2 inches.
32 to the railing from the top of the stone, it looks like.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Good eyes. And is that height the same as the neighboring fence?
It's 28 inches. I'm sorry, I thought it was an 8, but it's 2 foot 4 inches.
Yeah.
28.
Those dimensions match the ones on number 13 and 15.
Okay, thanks. Chris, do you want to go ahead with any other comments or questions?
I have no comments or questions. Well, the comments, I really like that we pulled up that catalog with these fence pieces because, you know, fences are something that we're talking about right now. So I think this is a great example of historical context, structure, like there was cast iron piers. I think that's, you know, we haven't decided completely what our standards are, like, you know, what the investigations we've been doing, but I think this is a great example of historical context as well as strong construction materials.
Yeah, great,
Design.
thanks. Felicia?
No comments or questions.
Excellent. Peter? Peter, are you with
Sorry.
us?
Yep, sorry, I'm with you.
Any comments or questions?
Echoing Chris's comment, I think this is a very good representation. I would be interested in you contacting, I think you said Ramos, Iron, to see if they can more closely replicate what is from that catalog cut supplied by the Historical Society, which I guess the main difference is the diamond pattern is somewhat smaller. Could you go back to that, Jackie?
Was this a slide you were referring to?
Yeah. If it were possible to create that. If not, I find your design acceptable.
Well, David mentioned that he tried that, but couldn't get anything done in a timely manner, correct?
Correct. I tried sourcing this through many catalogs. I looked at Lawler, King Architectural Metals. I looked at architectural wire mesh companies. I think I sent Jacqueline a list of the companies I looked to source it, and then I reached out to Ramos, but I haven't gotten I've tried a number of times contacting Victoria there, who does the quotes, and haven't gotten any response from her. I just think it's something that they're not interested in making. I don't know. It's a very hard thing to source.
Interesting.
It's not like chain link, and it's not like pulled metal. It's a different process probably than what is used today to make a kind of a similar fence.
Mm.
And if you can look at the context of the size, we were talking 2 foot, 4 inches, and this says that I think this picture might be of up to 3 feet 6 inches. So you've got an extra, what is that, 12 inches, and so it gives room for more diamonds.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay.
Your eyes are better than mine.
Yes, they're better than mine too. I think we're ready for a motion. Anyone care to provide that?
I move that we accept this application, just work with staff before we finalize it, that then you pass that by with staff, with the updated design when you finalize it.
Excellent.
I second.
Great. We have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll ask for public comment now. Apparently we're required to read this before every opportunity of public comment. So members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Jackie, do we see any raised hands?
We did
Rachel?
not see any raised
Rachel?
hands, and we did not receive any written comment.
Okay, great. Then I believe we are ready for a vote. Felicia,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
and the chair votes with the motion. So thank you, David. Good luck.
Thank you, David.
To be clear, I'm gonna work with staff to see if we can still
Oh,
match the original design with Ramos.
okay.
Thank you.
Terrific. Terrific. Well, best of luck. Thank you very much for coming in front of us.
Thank you. Have a nice
Nice
night.
job. Nice job. Okay. Our next application is 22 Union Park, and I will say this is Union Park Square or Union Square, however they call it. It's not Union Park Street, just to be clear. The proposed work is to install new PVC air intake pipe, a new PVC air intake pipe for a boiler in the front garden, at the front garden, in the garden. Do we have an applicant? Uh-oh, I'm not seeing anyone.
No, Juan, I'm just making him a co-host, so he is here.
Ah, Juan.
Good
Great.
evening. Can everyone hear me, see me?
Yes, would you like to state your full name, Juan?
Yes, my name is Juan Moliere. I am proposing this project at 22 Union Park for the whole building. So, Jacqueline, if we can go to so that's my full name. So the rationale for this project is boilers need outdoor fresh air for proper functionality. The initial plan, scoped by Best Chimney, was to use the chimney for both the intake and out exhaust pipes for the boiler. So boiler needs fresh air to make the combustion, and then those noxious gases go out. During the boiler installation, discovered that one of the chimney's liners was cemented decades ago. So they can only do the exhaust through the chimney. So the chimney internal space is not big enough for both pipes. Hence this proposal. The exhaust pipes, so rerouting the intake pipe through the window well is now the only viable option. If we can go to the next slide, please. So this install is a 3-inch intake pipe to provide fresh air to the boiler. So we're seeing the full building. This is hot water and heat for the building. The height of the pipe in front of the garden of the building is going to be estimated 36 inches, 3 feet, 8 to 10 inches away from the building wall. The pipe will emerge out of the ground inside the window well, bent away from the window towards the drain pipe. The masonry will not be impacted. No holes or changes to the walls will be happening. The pipe will be behind plant life, and we will be painting it to blend in with the building. This is something similar that is around Union Park. There's several buildings, especially to our left and our right. We see similar pipes. If we can go to the next slide, please. So right here on the first picture on the left, we see the front of the building and my little dog from the street. Right now, I did make a mock-up of what this intake pipe would look like. It is in that picture right there. On the middle picture, it's a little bit zoomed in from the sidewalk, and we can see the mock-up a little bit more. And then on the right-hand side of the picture, it's a different angle from the same distance, and we can see a little bit more of that mock-up. If we can go to the next slide, please. So here we have on the left, more zoomed in. In the middle, we have the dimensions of the mock-up of the pipe, what it'll be, 36 inches. And then on the right-hand side is where the pipe will be coming out of, which is the ground inside the window well. Yes, so this is the only option that we have right now because it is a safety issue at this point. Once the weather is going to start getting colder, the whole building is going to be shut down, windows, doors. having the intake coming from the inside of the building creates negative pressure, which can create a draft that can pull carbon monoxide into our unit, which is where the boiler resides in the back room. So for this reason, we are asking to allow this small intake pipe for safety issues for the carbon monoxide, among the economical issues that we just installed this boiler that it's supposed to last 40 years, but using inside air conditioned air, will create corrosion, make it work harder. Just like when you're blow drying your hair, if you put your hand at the back of the blow dryer, it makes it, work harder. It still works, but it won't last long. So those are some of the reasons, but the main reason is safety issue. We can potentially have carbon monoxide seeped into our unit, our living unit. And at the moment, the way that it's working, we have doors open to our living area space. So the intake, there's enough movement of air so the combustion can happen and the building can have hot water. But now, once it gets cold, this is not going to work. It's going to create negative pressure, and potentially we can have a very dangerous situation where carbon monoxide can seep in, among other issues. If anyone has any questions, please let me know. That's our presentation.
Okay, thank you, Juan. Peter, would you like to start with comments and questions?
I have a few questions. Juan, what is this system replacing?
So we replace an old oil boiler that was like 40 years at least. The people that replaced it, they were surprised that it was still running. So we wanted to go with something more efficient, and oil burners can be very detrimental to the environment. So a spill of oil can be bad for the water supply. Here, the water table is very high here, so it can impact. So we wanted to get away from that. So we put a high efficiency natural gas boiler.
And where were the oil fill pipes located?
In the garden.
Do they exist?
Yes. They're still right there right now. Perhaps they can be seen in some of the pictures. I'm not quite sure of the angles, but yes, the oil pipes, the intakes for filling up the oil tank are in the garden.
Is it possible to reuse them for your intake?
No, they're not wide enough diameter. You need X amount of intake to have a proper combustion. So 3-inch diameter is what is required.
Correct.
Yep, 3 inches. Which is what you see in the middle picture, that bend, that is a 3-inch pipe. I use some cardboard tubing, 3 inches, but yes, it's gonna resemble the bends. That's the size.
And that oil is in the middle of the garden. If I can I just say?
My wife would like to add
All right.
something.
Hi, I'm Diana DeSocio. I'm Juan's wife.
Control.
The oil intake is actually sort of right in the middle of the garden, or like closer to the wrought iron gate. And so in order for it to be tall enough, it actually would be more, it'd have to be extended, I would think. So it would be
Correct. And you
more
would,
more noticeable than what we're proposing.
yes, and you would have to actually drill through masonry. This proposal goes through the dirt.
So a couple more questions. This new boiler is adjacent to occupied living space?
That's correct.
Is there a basement underneath?
No, we are in a garden unit, and there is a back room where the boiler is.
Or front room, rather.
Or front room.
Yeah.
Yeah, the storage room, we call it. So right above this room is our second guest room, if you will, and then the windows to the sidewalk. So where the pipe in the pictures you see that goes down into the window well, that is a storage room right there. And from there is 4 feet to the boiler.
Okay, thank you.
Chris,
I
question?
may have
Oh,
comments
sorry.
later, but
Did
Oh,
you say
okay.
you were going to remove the oil pipes? It seems like they're open on the other end that, you know,
We did not mention that we're gonna remove the oil pipes. That has not been in the plans.
so you're gonna cut them from the old oil thing and they're gonna be just open conduits? Or were they
Actually, I don't
capped?
know.
Anyway, so they're gonna exist in the garden. Okay, is there a way to do a soffit and run this intake out the back of the building, or is it far?
No, the distance is too long and
I
the airflow wouldn't work.
Okay. And so the only thing that's gonna be exposed is this pipe. Does it have to be in PVC? Can it be copper? Can it be some other material?
No, it would have to be PVC, but it would be painted to blend in.
Could you cover it with copper to make it look like a downspout?
That's
Potentially,
that's
yeah.
potentially, yes, that's something that
I mean,
we could
let's
do.
You know, your contractor should be thinking of this stuff as they're doing it.
It's
Because they should know the historical relevance of a project like this in the front, especially Union Park. All right, so
Yeah,
those are
well,
just my questions and thoughts and
yep,
creativity.
no, I appreciate that. So basically the pipe will be like you see in the middle picture right now, right next to the drain pipe, which I believe it's looks like cast iron, black. So we will paint it that color to blend in.
but we could potentially
But we could
explore-
potentially explore using a different material
Yeah.
or covering material.
Cast iron is usually black. The copper's either copper colored or patinaed. So I mean, you could make it disappear.
Yep,
Yep,
absolutely.
that's no problem.
Is that it for you, Chris?
Problem, but we'll work through it.
Alicia?
Yeah, I was sort of thinking along Chris's lines, it's sort of, with the vegetation now, it's minimally visible. I'm thinking of winter. And if I like that you were saying that it was going to be a different color. The copper always sounds lovely. I don't know if there's any other copper there. I see the downspout
right,
over on the
yeah.
side, and I guess you could sort of,
If we
convince
can go
yourself
back
that that's part of
to
it.
a
But-
slide before. I don't believe there's a lot of copper in the front of our
Yeah.
building, but
I don't think there is.
Copper's always
we can
accepted.
work
Always
with
works.
that. Copper color material, yes.
Copper
Or
colored
copper.
material, I think. Yes. That's all. Thank you.
Hey, Juan, I have a question. I'm not sure I'm looking at the right thing. I'm looking not at your photos. Is there currently a sign in front of your property for an architecture firm?
That is
Next door.
next door, 24, 24, correct.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
They're doing the whole building.
Yeah,
yeah.
gotcha. Well, again, referring to the staff comments, the guidelines don't allow any kind of mechanical or utility stuff, for lack of a better word, infrastructure in gardens in these buildings.
If I may, there are several buildings with these intake pipes. There's also connections for the fire department. There's gas meters. So there is precedent all over around. And I mean, the gas meters being there, easy to read, valves to close, safety issues, the fire department connections, again, a safety issue. At this point, it is a safety issue, especially as we're going into winter. And this, honestly, we have no other choice. It's either this or we have no hot water and heat in the winter.
Rachel, do you want to comment here? Because there were ideas.
I can
Jackie?
sort of briefly go over staff's discussion between the applicant. So basically staff asked if it was possible to install a pipe at the rear through the roof. Applicant stated that neither is possible. We mentioned to the applicant that standards and criteria state that the placement of any sort of utility and mechanical equipment is not allowed at the front yard. And we also relayed to the applicant that vents are most appropriately located at the uppermost section of the roof, particularly specifically within an inconspicuous area. So staff requested a scaled drawing of the exact PVC vents and then a sort of formalized site plan. And basically the applicant also mentioned that any sort of internal intake unit is not feasible. When looking in the sort of idea of any sort of application regarding mechanical units in the front yard, specifically within the immediate space within Union Park and the street, we did not see any sort of application that detailed that scope of work.
This applicant, I guess my question is, has the engineering stated that there is no other alternative? The engineer who has designed this, the HVAC? Or is this just a?
No, there is no other way. It has been stated, and I myself, I'm a mechanical engineer, so I am knowledgeable with this.
And I would just second that that is probably very true, because
Right.
5-story buildings, you cannot vent a forced hot air or that type of a combustion thing that far up or that far back. So, you know, these used to be gardens, they used to be storage places, and you know, that's what it used to be. Now it's it's something different.
Technology change, yes.
Yeah. I've done the very same thing. My thing is 2 feet from my front. I had to run it out back. And it works just fine.
The
But
guidelines are clear, and this is Union Park. It's,
and I'm on Columbus Ave and Warren Avenue and all of them. It's all the same. But
well,
I
the
think
people who
that-
live on Union Park would disagree with you.
well, they're very welcome to do that. You know, we had the oil pipes there forever, and they were probably hidden by some of the greenery, or maybe it was just dirt before it became as nice as it is now. I understand their situation. I think this is not an air conditioner. It is not a pump. It is somewhat of it might cause some air noise, but it's an intake. It might suck air in a little bit, make a little noise. It is mechanical, but it's not like an air conditioning. It's not a pump. It's not an engine. This is it's doing air. There might be a way. I don't mean to step on Steph's toes or anything, but that we could hide it, like with a 4 or 5 inch copper corrugated downspout pipe, matches exactly what's there, and you know, that might be 98% of what we want. So those are my comments.
Well, we've not seen anything showing what it could be. All I've seen are a couple Hoyt pipes that would be completely inappropriate. I know you're offering suggestions. I don't know.
I think they could very easily take copper and cut it, braze it, and cover the PVC pipe perfectly.
Well, there would have to be more information, I would think, at the very least, to approve this. I don't know. Are we ready for a motion?
Catherine, I'd like to make another comment.
Sure.
Jackie, could you go to the photo with the mock-up?
Absolutely.
So the photo in the far right, I could reluctantly support this application if the routing of the pipe was modified such that the horizontal section is buried underground. So all you see is one penetration, not one coming up, then a horizontal section, and then a vertical. So if the routing of the PVC, if the 90-degree bend occurred below the ground and all we get is the final vertical section, I think that minimizes this.
That could definitely be done.
Well,
So I
I
like fellow commissioners' reactions to that.
I think that's a good thing, Peter, that this is probably the way of least resistance in that window well. Depending on where the burner is installed, they might have to make some changes inside to redirect it, as you're saying. But if it came out one thing, it'd be much easier to even cover. Those are my comments.
Rachel, do you want to add anything here?
I mean, as Jackie stated, the standards and criteria do state that mechanical units should not be visible from any public way. Such equipment should be located on the roof in a non-visible location or at the rear. Front yard placement is not appropriate. But again, it is always up to the commission to interpret the standards and criteria. Although I will say that of the pipes present on Union Park Street, we were unable to find any evidence that they were approved by the commission in the past.
Right, that's
And
always.
it also does say under front yards too, placement of any sort of utility / mechanical equipment will not be allowed in the front yard.
Well, the guidelines are pretty clear, and I'm afraid if this is approved, it sets a very, very tough precedent.
May I add one more thing? So of all the buildings at Union Park, this is the only building without a stoop, which is where potentially a front intake would be hidden. So that's why this is the solution that we require and need.
Well, we need to engineer the right
Appreciate it.
solution to meet the
Yeah.
guidelines, and we're kind of past that point.
You appreciate
I think I split. If we're splitting hairs, is this mechanical or is it downspout material? Because downspout is a mechanical system to a house. Without it, they would all fail. So the downspout is a mechanical system, really. So this is kind of the same thing. It's air. The other's water and gravity. This has a little bit more power to it, but again, those are my comments. My interpretation of mechanical
And utility.
And utility.
and utility.
I mean, I think one of the key words in having Rachel reread it, it's visibility. And so I think we can all remain open to some solutions to minimize the visibility. I mean, it looks like this is something that this is the only location, but there's a visibility. If it's a screening, if it's a copper enclosure, if it's penetrating the wall so that the horizontal piece is buried. I just think that there can be more options around limiting visibility of the
And
of the
maybe the
install.
precedent, I appreciate your interpretation, Felicia, and maybe the precedence we set is there are ways to do this. Everybody else on Union Park that has everything so visible, it's like this.
Yeah.
Maybe this is a great example of
Yeah, and if approved, we'll definitely make it blend in with the drain pipe, and we'll make it look awesome and pretty.
Well,
If not, we're gonna put an evergreen there.
well,
we can do that.
whoever crafts a motion here has to be
I'm
excuse
very-
me,
Oh,
can I finish?
that's right. Sorry.
Has to be very careful with your language and very specific, because it can't just be willy-nilly, oh yeah, we approve it, you do whatever you want. There
No.
has to be very, very careful coordination and approval here about the ultimate solution.
I think that they can get to an ultimate solution, but I wonder if today is the day for that, given
No.
some of the suggestions. that
No,
we've put out there? So is that a continuance?
Catherine,
yeah. Peter?
oh, I want to say despite my suggestion, I really want to hear evidence why the intake cannot be, I realize it'd be disruptive, but why the intake cannot be through the rear of the building with inductor fans. I understand there's a length issue, but why you cannot have install inductor fans to make the intake work by having it come from the rear of the building. So, Felicia, I think that's a good point. I think we may need a continuance here.
Because there were comments from someone at the city that there were other options here. So is a continuance the way to go, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys should reiterate in your motion exactly what you're looking for. Like Peter's latest comment, if he could reiterate that. And then if you guys are serious about interpreting this as a downspout as opposed to a mechanical utility, then be really specific about what you're looking for in terms of a drawing, a measured drawing, materials outlined, to give them what they need to do so they can come back and, you know, ideally reach whatever conclusion you guys wish to see.
And would it be appropriate to share with staff the engineering specifications for the outtake and intake air, just so that we know the length that it would have to travel and if it's too far and if it's not?
It sounds like that's like a really crucial piece of information that everyone really would like to see, to understand why the pipe has to come out the front. There's no other options, and that to further understand the safety risk that they mentioned in regards to carbon monoxide.
So I'm going to make an attempt to make a motion. Okay.
Thanks.
I move that we accept this application with a number of provisos. First of all, I would like the applicants to provide the engineering specs for this and the width of the depth of the house. So we just have it on record that that was part of the decision. And we know probably the height of the house, just so we have that from an engineering specification. The second proviso will be to have one straight pipe come out of the ground, not out of the window well, and not taking a horizontal bend, not going up again. Okay. And my thought is the third proviso is that we get an applicable sized copper corrugated downspout that can cover this spout and integrate it, even if it's a facade, into the existing that's right above it, right there. Somehow it looks like it's splitting the downspout. Okay. I think that's a very viable look. We've seen it. I've seen it before.
But I don't think that goes along with what was just said.
Right.
You're saying you're going to accept this, which I think you mean approve, but I'm not sure that's what Felicia and Peter had just said, or Rachel. I think it's a continuance. It's a denial of prejudice or a continuance to provide additional information. And I think the point that both Felicia and Peter made is very important about additional information about an alternate method completely.
Well, an alternative method completely, but also an alternative suggestion with respect to addressing the visibility nature of this. As I said earlier, I think we can get there. I just don't know that it's gotten there tonight. So rather than deny without prejudice so that they have to start all over again, I think a continuance with them taking some time to think about the comments that the commissioners have made and how they might present this install in a way that can address both Chris's point around whether or not it's downspout light or how we deal with the visibility issue. And then to Peter's point, I think we've got to get some corroborating information. Do not want to discount the petitioner's qualifications, but get some additional information with respect to why this cannot be, why the runs cannot be adjusted or mitigated so that this can occur in the rear of the structure.
So should I withdraw my motion and just say a continuance based on those criteria that you just discussed?
Yeah, I think what
That's what I'm
Felicia
gonna
said could serve as the motion.
You can do that, Chris.
I'm gonna take it right off the table.
Yeah, so say I
I'm
would like
withdrawing
to.
my motion. Would you like me to then just say everything that Felicia just said? So I make the motion of, we're gonna have a continuance. And what we would like from the applicants are the engineering specs so that we can see where it is installed and what the specs are for the intake and the outtake. And with the information that we've provided, you should be able to be creative and come back with some drawings of this one exit out of the dirt pipe and some sort of a copper corrugated covering. Those are my thoughts. Maybe you'll come up with something even better.
So quick question. You want something vertical straight out of the window well? Or still the bend, but the bend not be visible?
Out of the dirt, if we, I mean, that sounds horrible, but just looks like about a foot
Yeah.
to the side.
Okay.
So you're having to puncture the wall.
Got it.
Yeah.
But
No, that's probably better.
also, there's also the alternate taking it out the back of the building. That
Right.
has to be considered.
Correct.
I will tell you right now, there is no rooms in the walls. There is a chimney in between. But I will get you an engineer to give you those specs.
That's great, Juan.
Yes.
That's what we need.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Can I second? I didn't make the motion. I don't
Yes.
think I did.
I didn't want to leave you hanging.
Technically, it's Chris's motion, so go ahead.
Okay, I will second.
Alicia seconds. So now we will take public comment. Jackie? There we go. Rachel, thank you. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. Do we?
So we have
Sorry?
no raised hands currently, but we did receive 3 written public comments in support of the project. One was earlier in the day and I forwarded to you, and then we received 2 after 5 p.m. And so I forwarded those to you guys individually as they came in.
Would it be possible to just quickly say who those are from, Rachel, as we didn't have a chance to?
Yeah, sure. Give me one. Let me pull them up real quick. Okay. So we received one letter this in the morning. We received someone who lives right next door to 222 Union Park Street. They won't be able to attend, but I write in support of the proposed work. They believe
not Union Park Street, Union Park, right?
Union Park. Yes, sorry, Union Park.
Thanks.
They live at 20 Union Park.
Okay,
and they
good.
believe that the proposed work should be allowed to go ahead. And they said, I don't know if the commission wants my input, but I figured it couldn't hurt to tell you. So that's fun.
Of course we want your input.
The next one is from 9 Union Park. They can't attend, but they'd like Trey to support the proposed work. Diana and Juan have been outstanding neighbors and love the neighborhood. We've seen the plan work and don't feel it would have any negative impact on our neighborhood. Thank you for your time. And then the last one, I reside at 314 Shawmut, adjacent to Union Park. Unfortunately, I won't be able to attend, but I wanted to express my support. I believe it should move forward. Not sure if my input is needed, but I thought it might be helpful to share my thoughts.
It really is helpful. Thank you. Thank you. And being neighbors right there in Union Park, it's very helpful. Good. So I think we're ready for a vote. Peter,
Aye.
Christopher,
I
Alicia,
Aye.
and chair votes with a motion. So thank you, Juan. We'll look forward to continuing this.
So, continuance, am I gonna be receiving an email? How does the process work?
Yes,
you.
so Juan, Jackie and I will reach out to you.
Okay.
Basically, you just need to collect all of that information that the commission asked for. And when you have it, you can say, okay, we're ready, and we can put you on the next hearing agenda. And so if you want to shoot us an email right now, like letting us know when you think you might be able to get that info together by, we can let you know when we need whether you'll be ready, so we can say, okay, the deadline for the October hearing is X. For the November hearing is X.
Okay.
Shoot us an email and we'll talk offline.
Yeah. There's no possibility of having this heard before that, any sooner.
No.
Okay.
But the October hearing is October 7th, I believe.
Juan, particularly on the, if it is the front garden solution, try to be as very specific with photographs or even materials, whatever, so that, you know, it helps speed along the process.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you both
Good
so
evening.
much. Thanks. Our next application is 58 Chandler Street. And again, I would ask, given that there are many administrative review items, we just focus on what is before us tonight. The proposed work is at rear facing Lawrence Street, install a new rear balcony with metal handrails, a new Juliet balcony, a 2-story rear addition. I think we're going to get some clarification about that word, clad with wood paneling and new window and door assemblies. And do we have a representative for the applicant? I see a hand.
Hi, Catherine. Zach Millay here with Pittman Worley Architects.
Hi, Zach. Thank you very much.
Rachel, Jackie, I have an updated set of plans if I can share my screen.
Yes, you
Yes.
should. Please email us that, though. We need that for the public record.
Yes, I will send that. We were working on that pretty much as we were. So, can you all see this?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna skip through all the stuff at the front, which is all administrative, and we're gonna just go right into the back. So here on the left screen, you'll see that this is the existing building over at 58. And here sort of closer up images of it within their garden or their back patio. And I'm gonna go right to the back elevations. So a little background here, Rachel and I had numerous conversations back and forth about this project. I had originally submitted an application that had a 2-story addition, which in the back at the garden, and you could call it the parlor level. But after she reviewed it a little bit more closely, we decided that we were going to take the addition only to a 1-story and keep it at that lower garden level, so it's not going above the fence line over at Lawrence Street. So I was able to work with the client to rearrange that plan a little bit to that. Secondly, we had decided that we're gonna, instead of doing a larger glass opening in the back at the kitchen of one of the new units, we're going to simply go back similar to here on the left is the existing back elevation. Kind of go back to a single door with a single double hung 2/2 window. And again, those were all sort of comments that Rachel and Jackie had for us, just with the application and what the likelihood of success was to get that approved. So what we've done is we've gone back and we rearranged the levels from primarily these 3 intermediate floors to all go back to double hungs, 2/2s we're proposing versus the 1/1s. But what we are doing, and I can go to the plans and we can look a little closer, is we're taking the windows and instead of leaving them in the existing locations that you see on the left, we're actually moving them closer in towards the center of the building. And the reason that we are doing that is really because of the interior plans. It just helps us greatly with getting functional spaces inside. So again, here, you'll see that the existing masonry openings are about 2.5 feet almost from the edge of from the property line. And we're moving them in to about 3'8" from the property line. And again, that's giving us more flexibility within the building to do what we need to do program-wise. So if I go back to the back. So you can see we are keeping the size of the openings, even though that, you know, we do have a little bit big of a brick mold than what is existing, but we are keeping the size of the windows. We are going to do brownstone sills and headers. You know, the whole back of the building will be repointed. So yes, we're altering the openings, but we're trying to mimic to some degree or another what was there and what is fairly consistent in the neighborhood. And I think recently there's been some projects over at 82 we've done and over at 116 Chandler Street. Some similar, we have not moved openings, but there's similar proposals in their orientation. And of course, we are proposing to have sort of a balcony that comes off the building 6 feet off of that unit's kitchen. So other than that, that's what we have today.
So this is the first time staff has seen the updated drawings, and we just wanted to remind the commissioners that this is the rear, but it faces Lawrence Street. So we review everything above the fence. The original window design and arrangement of window openings on all facades within the commission's jurisdiction shall be retained, is stated in the standards and criteria. So we would encourage you to consider that standard and criteria as you review this project. And note that in the past, the commission has approved decks off the rear along Lawrence Street. And having the door made to look as closely as possible to a 2/2 window is something that the commission has required in the past.
Catherine, you are muted.
Oh, and I so hate that. I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. Rachel, to confirm, Zach's drawing on the right is different from what originally was submitted on the left?
So what's on the left is the existing conditions. The drawing on the right is updated from his original proposal for the project. We explained to them that though it's in the rear, in most cases in the south end, rear work is exempt. However, Lawrence Street is reviewed. We discussed how with the fences that run along Lawrence Street, we don't review anything below the fence, but we do review above the fence. So we are looking at that balcony, the proposed masonry opening changes, and I believe, do you still have the Juliet balcony?
No, there's no Juliet balcony anymore
Just the
because,
one rear.
yeah, because originally the addition was 2 stories, but after our discussions, we just limited to, it's just going to happen on the lower level. So there's no Juliet balcony anymore.
Where was the Juliet balcony?
Juliet balcony was off of the parlor level here. So when this addition
Oh.
went up 2 stories, we had a Juliet balcony as part of that, but that has since been removed.
So the addition, as you call it, how deep is that?
That is
terms of
only coming
width?
off of the building about 3 feet. So this is the edge of the existing, and this is where we're coming off 3 feet for that addition.
I mean, there's no plans for a deck on top of that?
And there's no plans for a deck on top of that, no.
So is that similar to what is next door to you at 56 Chandler? It's kind of a bump out. It's not really an addition, a building addition.
Yeah, it's more of a bump out. I mean, we're not going from literally property line to property line just because I'm limited from zoning for square footage wise. I'm limited to 50 square feet. So it's not quite an addition. You could call it a bump out.
I see.
And it's not really, again, because it's not going wall to wall, it's technically not a addition, it's a bump out.
Okay, thank you for that, Zach. Shall we go to Chris? Questions, comments?
Really, there's no deck on top of that? I mean, it seems like a place you to have some outdoor stuff. I have no questions.
Okay. Felicia?
Nor do I.
Peter?
I have a comment, and it's, I'm uncomfortable hearing this application. I think it is so substantially modified from what was noticed that I think it needs to be postponed. I know it's a technicality in my view, but we're realigning windows, we're eliminating a Juliet balcony, we're adding a fuller balcony, we're reducing the size. I think it's a different project than what has been publicly noticed.
Do you have a good point, Peter?
That's a good point.
That is fair. We did not notice the changes to the masonry openings. We did say new window and door assemblies, but I think that's a little different than
Right.
this proposal.
Well, can there be any statement made about those changes in the openings in the facade?
I think following our guidelines, that's just not done, especially on a public way. If it were really the back of a building, it is the back of a building, but didn't face a public way, I think it would be no problem. It's drawn well, it looks good, but that's a whole back of a building facing. It'd be like changing the front of a building on another street.
Yeah, exactly right, Chris. The
So
guidelines
maybe
don't allow. Yeah.
maybe I think Peter's right. I think we just I don't know what we do. Do we just make a motion to deny with prejudice or to come back with a new application? Because everything on some of the staff recommendations, none of it's there anymore.
Yeah, I'm trying to think about, because I think we can't continue this because it's a different project description than what was posted.
I
think that we should, the best way to do it would be denial without prejudice. They can submit a new application and come back in October. This drawing and design will be properly noticed. Staff will have time to review it. And then we can have staff comments that reflect this design, and then the commission can look at it.
Yeah, I think that's a good course of action. Should we have a motion to that effect?
Yes.
Can Sean speak in on this too?
Is he part of your team?
Yes, he's the owner, contractor, developer on this.
I think yes, before we,
John,
yes.
you are now, apologies, you are now made the co-host and able to speak.
All right, am I muted? Yeah.
No, you're good.
Yes, you're good.
Okay. No video. Trying to do video, but whatever. Yeah, so I mean, the window changes are obviously, I understand, I've been doing this for a long time. The deck has been approved on several other locations on the back of Chandler Street. We're not totally beholden to having to change the window openings, but we're trying to keep them uniform, which is what came up. We're trying to stay within the guidelines. So if you're saying another application is what you want, that's fine.
But Sean, the windows are,
You're a non-starter, I think.
you're proposing moving them, not just.
We are
But-
moving, we're shifting the windows in alignment just closer to each other, but that's not really the, that's not the end of this proposal, obviously. I mean, we would like to do that. It would help the layout.
Well, that's what the proposal is before us tonight. So this is.
Totally.
This is-
Yep.
This is why we have to decide whether it's appropriate to deliberate on it or not. And I don't think it is.
And yeah, to save time, just in the next application, I don't think that we're going to allow for the openings to be changed in total for the back of the building. Is there agreement to that?
Right, I don't see what's wrong.
Well,
with
so that I guess my question would be, if there was no opening changes other than below the fence line, could it be approved?
No.
Well, no, because we'd have to see new materials, Sean.
Okay.
Would that be, not to go into it more, but would that have to come in front of the commission, or would that be able to be handled by staff?
Yes.
That has to go. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Okay. Well, shall we?
Quickly in its simplicity, I mean, if we've just given you some.
No, I think
thoughts,
it's something that I can tomorrow I could even send this over back to Rachel and say,
Get on the schedule.
Rachel, here it is. Let's get this going for October and
Yeah, that's great.
move on from there.
Okay, so shall we have an official motion then?
Or the applicant could
Well,
voluntarily
if
withdraw
I may
their application.
Jackie? what?
Apologies.
Did you want to say
I
something?
just had to reshare my screen. I was going to ask Zach if he could unshare it.
Sure.
Oh.
ahead.
Well, we need a motion.
Peter,
Yeah,
I think you had.
The applicant could withdraw if he chose to, or you guys can make a motion to deny without prejudice, which just sounds like the direction you were heading.
I mean, I guess again, we could
I think that a denial without prejudice is actually best on second thought, because they do have the administrative review items in the front that we are ready to.
And let's move forward.
So I would deny without prejudice this portion to make it clean.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
I
would
think that
approve
makes sense, yeah.
administratively everything else, and then I just
Yep.
come to the back.
It's
Okay.
just this part,
It's
this
just
new
this
part.
part. Okay, we can.
But so to be clear, as the readdressing is that we're not moving the window openings, right? That would be the major issue.
Well, it's an issue, certainly. Okay.
I think Sean, I think you need to go through every item here that was on the agenda tonight for design review, and see what has changed. So you've gone from a 2-story to a 1-story addition. You're going to reposition the windows. You've changed balconies. So there are 3 items.
Yeah. Okay.
Motion?
I move we deny the design review application subject to the full commission, not not the items under administrative review, that we deny that without prejudice.
I
Thank you.
second that.
Good. We have a motion. It's been seconded. We'll now ask for public comment. Members of the public will now have an opportunity to ask questions and provide comment on the application and discussions. To do so, please raise your hand via the Zoom meeting platform. If you are calling in and cannot use the platform, you can press *9 to raise your hand, or you can send your questions to staff via email at southendldc@boston.gov. I see a hand. Mr. Fitzgerald? Can we unmute? There we go.
Thank you very much. I'm in a butter at 56. I'd like to also note that the bump out has been changed from 2 feet to 3+ feet. I don't think that's something that's been acknowledged so far.
Was it originally 2 feet?
That was what was on the original plans. Now,
Ah.
having seen these this evening, I'm just raising the point that it's a different distance.
Good, that's an important point.
Zach, do you want to speak on that?
No, my thought on that is if it's below the fence line, then it, as I understand it, should not or is not part of the commission's review.
But it would also extend further than our bump out that Sean built 13 years ago. So it would be an uneven line sight.
Yeah, by a foot. Yeah.
Well, Rachel, you
I mean,
wanna-
that's more of a zoning issue than it is a landmarks issue.
Yeah,
It's a
that's
50
what
square
I'm-
foot allowable below the street level. So
Mm.
that's a whole nother, that's a different, I think that's, if we move this below the fence line
Uh-huh.
because of the advisement from Rachel. So that's why we went to 3 feet.
Technically, we don't review below the fence line,
Yeah.
but if there is a zoning issue, that needs to be sorted out before the commission can offer their decision on the project.
Yeah, so there is no zoning issue with it being 3 feet by 12 feet,
Yeah,
or that's not a zoning
It's
issue.
not a zoning thing.
Okay. Jack, did you have any other comments?
I do not.
Okay, great, thank you. Do we have other public comment waiting? Did we get any emails or
Did not
letters?
receive any emails in regards to this application, and I see no other raised hands.
Okay, excellent. I think we are ready for a vote. Felicia?
Aye.
Chris?
Hi.
Peter?
Aye.
The chair also votes aye, so thank you very much, Sean and Zach, and we'll look forward to
We will be back.
All right,
talking
thank you.
again.
And
Yep.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thanks
Have a
very
good night.
much.
All right, bye.
Thank you, thank you. So that concludes the design review portion of the hearing. Administrative review. Do I have to read this, Rachel?
No.
Okay, so commissioners, have we all had a chance to review the administrative items?
Jackie, you can just like scroll through them.
Yes, we have.
Great. Think we need a motion to approve?
I'll make a
So
motion
moved.
to approve the administrative review items as presented.
Excellent. Peter, you want a second?
Second.
Great. All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
So the administrative review is approved. And next we have minutes, I think. Yes, ratification of the minutes.
I move that we accept the minutes from our August 5th meeting, 2025.
Second?
Second.
Great. Peter? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Next, any staff updates? Rachel?
We do not have any staff updates.
I think the
No
staff has
staff
been,
updates.
the staff has been updated with one Jacqueline. Excellent.
Jackie's here. She's still here. She's doing
That's
great.
I am
great.
still here.
That's really good news.
It's been really fun to have someone new to work with on the South End. I know
Hope
that
you're
now
having
that
fun.
summer, yeah, I hope so.
No, it has been fun. I've
Good.
been thoroughly enjoying it.
Good.
There's
Well,
a lot to learn. It's cool.
once again, we as commissioners, I'm sure I can speak for everyone, would like to thank you both for the effort to move many of these items to administrative review, and you're taking care of them, and we so appreciate that.
Of course.
Anytime.
Okay. Is
Yeah,
there?
I'd just like to say that I really appreciate Jackie and Rachel's help. I emailed them this morning saying I was grappling with 14 Rutland, simply because it was new construction, and Rachel very helpfully informed me that the standards and criteria apply to new construction as well as to the buildings of historic significance. So that was a
Isn't that
good tutorial.
Even if
we know that we always operate under that.
I actually didn't know that they didn't apply to like a more modern building.
Nor did I.
And
Wait,
and
I'm
No, they do
surprised.
apply. So
Of
we
course
review
they
our
do.
standard. Yeah, so we review everything in the district, whether it's new or old, and we apply
Absolutely.
our standards and criteria where applicable.
what if, and I'm not saying it was, what if a design mistake might have been made, like purple shag carpet on one of these things? Can we, go back and review it in a more contextual perspective, like 14 Rutland?
It'd be hard
we don't-
to answer the question, Chris, because there's you need the facts of the application, and then you need to look at the specific rules and the standards and criteria, whether it's should or shall. Something that we can, think about as we work on updating the standards and criteria. And now that summer is ending, I'm sure the window subcommittee will meet again. So something to kind of bring to that forum.
And I just want to say I appreciate your time and effort and work and your statements, even though I'm a contrarian and might say I might disagree.
You mean the
You're
staff-
allowed to.
staff
You're a
comments?
commissioner. That's your job. You're allowed to interpret the standards and criteria. That's why you're here. If
Yeah.
it was all administrative review, there would be no commissioner.
It'd be very difficult for everything to lie on two people.
Yeah, that's true. That'd be right.
I guess
So
I'm a
it was,
little-
to
I'm a
me, it
little
was very
puzzled.
obvious. It was very obvious when Rachel said there's no distinction between new construction versus old, but my mind had said, yes, commission reviews new construction before it's built, but it didn't carry through in my thinking to modifications once it's built.
Yeah, think about 566 Columbus. Any changes to that new building, whether they're updating the facade or repointing, we will review it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a little puzzled at the confusion, because when you think about Guy Grassie's building at the corner of Lawrence and Clarendon Street, that was a brand new building, and it had to conform with our guidelines. And we went back and forth with Guy, and he was very receptive to comments such as South End buildings have a base, a middle, and a top, and window configurations are all considered. So this building that we talked about tonight at Cumston and Rutland, which is one big building, regardless of what was said, of course it had to follow the guidelines. I don't understand the confusion there.
I don't think it's
Yeah, but
confusing. I think
but-
it's interpretation again,
Yeah,
because
but
that is
commissioners, not to cut you guys off, but we already discussed and made a decision on that application. So
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to present this in general terms about so-called new buildings, type A buildings. They have to conform to the guidelines. I don't need to mention any specific address. And I also want to talk just for a second about this whole security and safety issue, no matter where that takes place. It is not our purview to help people feel safe. And those of us who have lived in the South End forever, Peter, for example, it's not up to the commission. There are other agencies which exist supposedly to make us feel safe.
I totally agree with you, and I just want to clarify it again from my standpoint. It wasn't safety of the infiltration of mass and casts or anything like that. I was just talking more of the safety of operations.
Understood, Chris. Yes,
okay.
You were concerned with the openings of the doors and so on. That yeah, that's different. Right. You're not trying to keep people off somebody's stoop.
No, that's they bought the place. It's just like
Exactly.
some of these mechanical things that it's the only way. Well, no, there's other ways. That's your problem because you might have made the wrong choice in what you're doing.
Yes,
So that and people have to understand that.
Yeah.
And you have to say it kindly.
Yeah.
I need to get people to do that for me.
Try to be kind. And we certainly are all empathetic with, the situations, but guidelines are guidelines and that's our job. So
Well,
anyway,
thank you all
enough
for
said.
your work tonight.
Oh, thank you, Jackie.
Thank you.
Rachel, commissioners, great job. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Catherine.
Right.
Thank you, Catherine. Great
At
job
least-
chairing.
We
Well,
have
Where is this picture? I want to know where this picture is. I tried to find it in the back bay.
Oh, it's geez, I used to know.
I took one of those buildings and with the Google maps and tried to look down and find one of these buildings and I could not find out where it is.
So it's looking over the mall toward Beacon Street, correct?
Maybe.
I'm guessing because of the trees.
That could be trees in an alley too. Just have, it.
I don't
All right,
think
this is
so.
like a jigsaw puzzle. Let's leave that. Let's continue this. Continue this.
Okay, do I hear a motion to continue?
Oh, no, adjourn.
You do not.
Just joking. Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, great. Vote,
Aye.
all in
Have a
favor.
good evening, everyone.
Good
You
night.
too. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.